We can no longer afford to spend as if deficits don't matter and waste is not our problem. We can no longer afford to leave the hard choices for the next budget, the next administration, or the next generation. And that's why I've charged the Office of Management and Budget, led by Peter Orszag and Rob Neighbors, who are standing behind me today, with going through the budget, program by program, item by item, line by line, looking for areas where we can save taxpayer dollars. Today, the Budget Office is releasing the first report in this process, a list of more than 100 programs slated to be reduced or eliminated altogether. And the process is ongoing. Now, I want to be clear. There are many, many people doing valuable work for our government across the country and around the world. And it's important that we support these folks. People who don't draw a big paycheck or earn a lot of praise, but who do tough, thankless jobs on our behalf in our government. So this is not a criticism of them. At the same time, we have to admit that there is a lot of money that's being spent inefficiently, ineffectively, and in some cases in ways that are actually pretty stunning. Some programs may have made sense in the past, but are no longer needed in the present. Other programs never made any sense, the end result of a special interest's successful lobbying campaign. Still, other programs perform functions that can be conducted more efficiently or are already carried out more effectively elsewhere in the government. One example of a program we will cut is a long-range radio navigation system which costs taxpayers $35 million a year. Now, this system once made a lot of sense. Before there were satellites to help us navigate. Now there's GPS. And yet, year after year, this obsolete technology has continued to be funded, even though it serves no government function and very few people are left who still actually use it. Another example is the National Institute for Literacy. Now, I strongly support initiatives that promote literacy. It's critical. But I oppose programs that do it badly. Last year, nearly half of the funding in this program was spent on overhead. So we've proposed cutting the $6 million for this program in favor of supporting literacy efforts within the Department of Education, which use tax dollars more effectively and wisely. We're also closing an office maintained by the Department of Education in Paris. This is an office that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to employ one person as a representative to United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO. Now, participation in UNESCO is very important, but we can save this money and still participate using email and teleconferencing and a small travel budget. In addition, we're going to save money by eliminating unnecessary defense programs that do nothing to keep us safe, but rather prevent us from spending money on what does keep us safe. One example is a $465 million program to build an alternate engine for the Joint Strike Fighter. The Defense Department is already pleased with the engine it has. The engine it has works. The Pentagon does not want and does not plan to use the alternative version. That's why the Pentagon stopped requesting this funding 2 years ago, yet it's still being funded. Now, these are just a few examples, but the point to remember is that there are consequences for this kind of spending. It makes the development of new tools for our military, like the Joint Strike Fighter, more expensive, even prohibitively so, and crowds out money that we could be using, for example, to improve our troops' quality of life and their safety and security. It makes government less effective. It makes our nation less resilient and less able to address immediate concerns and long-term challenges. And it leaves behind a massive burden for our children and grandchildren. Now, some of the cuts we're putting forward today are more painful than others. Some are larger than others. In fact, a few of the programs we eliminate will produce less than $1 million in savings. And in Washington, I guess that's considered trivial. Outside of Washington, that's still considered a lot of money. But these savings, large and small, add up. The 121 budget cuts we are announcing today will save taxpayers nearly $17 billion next year alone. and even by Washington standards, that should be considered real money.